Welcome. Thank you for joining me. Grayboardgamer here, and today I'm playing Postcard Dungeons. This version is the Kickstarter version. It's in color and on cardstock, but it is available as a print and play file on the Postcard Dungeons website, which I will have a link to in the description below. I will do 2 playthroughs of this game. This first one I'm going to do as a 2-player competitive version, just to show you how the competitive version works. After I finish the competitive version, I'll add another card that's an expansion to it that turns it into a co-op version. Since there's no box, let's get right into the setup. The game does not come with its own components, so you have to provide those, but it's fairly simple. You need 7 6-sided dice, and you need player tokens to represent each player. I will use these red and blue glass squares to keep track of the red and blue player. And that's it. We're ready to play Postcard Dungeons. Again, this will be a 2-player competitive version. The goal is to be the player with the most victory points at the end. And victory points on the treasures below are represented by the gem icons. Whichever player has the most gem icons or victory points at the end of the game is the winner. There are tiebreakers also listed in the rules if it comes to that. The first thing the players will do is choose which of the 3 dungeons they will go into. And here on the base version of the game, our choices are the Keep on the Hinterlands, White Feather Mountain, or the Crypt of Terrors. And the difficulty increases the further down you go in the dungeon. The players will choose which dungeon they go in, and I think they'll both play it conservative. We'll have the red and the blue player choose the Keep on the Hinterlands to start. The game consists of 3 adventures, so after each player 3rd adventure is completed, that's when we'll tally up and see who has the most victory points. We'll see which player will be player number 1 here in the first adventure. Whichever player rolls highest will be player number 1. First we'll start with the blue, who rolled a 2. And the red also rolled a 2. The blue player has a 1, and the red player has a 4, making the red player player number 1. The first thing we do is populate the dungeon. We do this by rolling 3 6-sided dice one at a time. After rolling each die, you will place it on the appropriate box, starting with sorcery. Then the second die will go to traps, and the third die will go to monsters. So we'll start sorcery of 2, traps of 3, and monsters of 5. After making the 3 rolls, you add the total of the dice together. 2 and 3 is 5, plus 5 is 10. Then you move the dice down into the appropriate slots in the dungeon that player is in. Again, we have a total of 10. So we'll follow the arrows according to the total of the dice. In this first one, if it's 9 or higher, it's going to move here. For the traps, we rolled a 10, so we will go to this first spot, which is labeled 3 to 10. And for the monsters, a 10 will also take us down the left arrow for the 3 to 12 spot. Next, we check if there's any icons that take place right away. In this case, we do have one. The sorcery has the defend icon with the trap symbol, so the traps are being defended by the sorcery. To denote that the traps are being defended, you rotate the traps die so it is sitting at an angle to help you remember that the traps die is being defended, in this case by sorcery. The other symbols on traps and monsters, both with the skull, represents an instant kill attack on that character class. For traps, it would be an instant kill on the warrior. For monsters, it would be an instant kill on the thief. But before we play those out, we have to roll the 3 hero dice. The 3 hero dice are rolled simultaneously. And, well, that makes it easy to determine where we're going to place them. They're all 5, so 5 will go in each spot. 1 for the thief, 1 for the warrior, and 1 for the wizard. No other effects will take place at this time because there are no stunned players. Stunned players have the little Z's symbol next to them to show which character would be stunned at that time. In this case, the red player has no stunned characters. Next, we resolve the attacks. and we go in order based on the numbering on the card. You can see that sorcery is first, thief is second, and then it goes on to traps, warrior, monsters, and finally the wizard is sixth. The sorcery goes first, but all it is doing is defending the traps. It does not attack the thief, which means the thief can now go. In order to have a successful attack, either the dungeon attacking our heroes or the heroes attacking the dungeon, their die has to be equal to or greater than the die they are attacking. The thief can successfully take out everything except for the traps. It cannot attack the traps because it is being defended by the sorcery. In order to attack the traps, the defending die would need to be defeated first. So if the thief were to attack sorcery and take it out, the traps would no longer be defended and would be vulnerable to attack, but the thief would have already taken their turn, meaning the traps would go next and the warrior would still be instantly killed. So the thief will concentrate on the monsters, which are a 5, which is the same as the thief. So the thief will attack the monsters and defeat them, and we'll save that die off to the side as a successful defeat for our heroes. The thief has gone, which means we move third to the traps, who has the instant kill warrior symbol, which means no matter what the total is on the traps die, even if it's less than, the warrior is instantly killed and removed from the board, and that one will be in favor of the dungeon itself. That would normally take us to the warrior, who is gone, and so are the monsters, which brings us over to the wizard, and the only attack available to the wizard is sorcery, since the traps are still defended. The wizard die is much higher, so the sorcery is defeated. And that ends the first adventure for the red player. Now we need to tally the die results. The red player's successful total is 7, and the dungeon's successful total is 5. We subtract the dungeon total from the players. In this case, it's 7 minus 5, which will give us a net of +2. Having a positive outcome allows the red player to capture a treasure. The player is allowed to capture a treasure in the dungeon they were in or the any column. We have 2 available, and you can only capture 1 treasure. You can't capture a treasure of lesser value and then use the remaining amounts for another one. And since we only have 2 to spend, our options are limited. We're here in the keep. This number in the lower right corner of the picture of the treasure tells you how much it costs to purchase it. So the only options we have available are these first 2 in the keep and this one on the any. In this case, the red player is definitely going to take this flail here, which will grant the red player a +2 to their warrior's attacks, and it is also worth 2 victory points at the end of the game. Each treasure can only be captured once during the entire playthrough, so I'll use the red marker to show that the red player has captured that treasure. That is the end of the red player's adventure, so we can clear all the dice out and get ready to populate the keep on the hinterlands for the blue player. Starting with sorcery. Ooh, that's a tough roll. Already at a 6. The traps, a 4. Looks like it can be a tough adventure for the blue player. And a monster total of 2. The blue player is looking at a total of 6 and 4 for 10 and a total of 12, which will move the die to the same spot that the red player had, but the traps are higher than 11 and will move to the right, but the 12 will still move the monsters into the instant kill spot for the thief. Again, our traps are being defended here by the sorcery, so we'll turn that die to remind us. And you can see that claw symbol there. That is a standard attack that the traps will do when it's their turn. We'll see what we have to work with for our players this time. We're going to need some good rolls to have a positive outcome. 5, 5, and 3. I think our blue player is in trouble here. I don't think we can have a positive outcome because the sorcery is a 6, which means none of our dice here are going to be able to successfully attack it. So the traps will never be attacked due to the defense. That's why I placed the 3 on the thief. although it didn't really matter. We are going to lose the 3, and we're only going to be able to gain the 2. But let's play through it. Sorcery is defending the traps, taking us to the thief, who can attack the monsters, taking them out. That brings us up to the traps, who has the claw, the standard attack symbol, which means the traps will attack the next player in order and continue down the line until it does take somebody out or is unable to. In this case, the trap springs, the warrior leaps out of the way, the wizard gets out of the way just in time, but it comes around to the unsuspecting thief who wasn't paying attention, and the 4 is greater or equal to the 3, taking the thief out. And that brings us to our warrior, who has no available target. The monsters are gone, and our wizard, who also has no available target. This time the players were able to only manage a total of 2. The dungeon managed a total of 3, giving us a -1, which means the blue player will not capture a treasure. Since the blue player was unable to capture a treasure, we'll place one of their tokens here on the castle. And that means on their next turn, they will get a hireling, which is a 4th die to roll when they're rolling the hero dice. They still only use 3, but this time the blue player will have 4 to select from. The red player is feeling pretty confident, so for their second adventure, they're going to go back to the keep on the hinterlands, but the blue player is going to go a little more aggressive and go to the White Feather Mountain. Red player went first during the first adventure, so this time I will have the blue player go first in the second adventure, and this is not in the rules. The rules don't actually have any specific information, at least on the back of the card, as to how to handle player order, so this is just a house rule I made up. And in our third adventure, we'll roll the dice again to see who goes first. The blue player will now populate their dungeon, the White Feather Mountain, starting with sorcery. And getting a 1, that's a great start. The traps, also a 1. Blue player is getting quite lucky, and our monsters will be a 6. The dungeon only managed a total of 8 this time, so all the dice will be moving down the left-hand column. Sorcery will come down here. Again, we're in the second dungeon, the White Feather Mountain. The traps and the monsters. We do have an icon for defense of the traps again here from the sorcery. So the traps are defended, and we will have to deal with instant kill symbols for the wizard and the thief. Plus, there will also be a standard attack here from the sorcery. Remember, we get 4 dice this time because the blue player has their hireling, which I'll take off now. And we get to pick 3 out of these 4 dice. And that is an awful, awful roll. I will definitely take the 1, the 2, and the 3 and get rid of that extra 1. The blue player is having a terrible game. And thanks to those low rolls, I do not think the blue player will be successful again. First up, the sorcery is defending the traps and will do a standard attack, starting with the next player in order, which is the thief. The 1 is not equal to or higher. The warrior has a 3. The wizard, unfortunately, is at a 1 and is eliminated. That brings us to the thief, who can attack and will attack and defeat the sorcery. Bringing us to the traps, who will instant kill the wizard, who is already dead. These traps are no longer defended because the sorcery was eliminated. That will bring us to the warrior, who has a 3 and can eliminate the traps, but unfortunately we were unable to take out the monster who sneaks up and kills the thief. Our poor blue player again failed, only got a total of 2. The dungeon again has a higher total with 3, -1, which means we will place our marker back here, so the blue player will get a hireling in their third and final adventure. That brings us to the red player for their second adventure, who's sitting pretty good here. Has a 3 in sorcery, a 5 in traps, and a 4 in monsters. A little bit of a tougher adventure for the red player this time. We have a total of 3 and 5 for 8, plus 4 gives us 12. The 12 will cause a sorcery to move to the right. the traps to move to the right, but the monsters will stay here on the left. We have a defending symbol. The traps are defended by the spell of the sorcery. We will have a standard attack and an instant kill on the thief to deal with also. The red player rolls 2, 3, 4. Red player's looking pretty good here. The sorcery will attack first, but there is no attack. It is defending the traps. Bring us to our thief, who has a 4, and will be able to take out the monsters who are also at a 4. Next up we have the traps doing a standard attack with a 5. The next player in order would be the warrior. That 5 is definitely a lot higher than the warrior's 2. The warrior just walked right into that trap and got killed, which will cause us to skip the warrior. The monsters have already been defeated. The wizard will attack the sorcery. It is equal and is able to defeat the sorcery, and that would release the defense, but there are no more players left to go. That adventure was well executed by the red player. They did have the advantage of the warrior with a +2 to their attack, but the warrior did not get to attack, was eliminated before the attack would take place. And that +2 is only to the warrior's attack. He doesn't get that +2 added on to defend against an attack coming in. The red player managed a 7 and only lost 2 and can capture a treasure of 5 here in the keep on the hinterlands. Our red player could take the crossbow for 4, but that's only worth 1 victory point. They could come over here and take the treasure chest for 5, which is worth 3 victory points, and that's what the red player is going to do. Make it extremely difficult for the blue player to win. The red player already has 5 victory points against the blue player's 0. So the blue player will have to go big in this third and final adventure. But let's see who's going first. The blue player will roll a 5, and the red player rolls a 6. So red is going first again. Red sees no reason to risk anything and will continue to go to the keep on the hinterlands. The blue player needs to go big and is going to go all the way down into the Crypt of Terrors and try to secure a treasure worth enough to defeat the red player right at the very end. The red player will go first and populate their dungeon with a sorcery of 6, a traps of 4, looking pretty tough for the red player, and a monsters of 4. So yeah, this looks like this might be a difficult round for the red finally. We have 6 and 4 for 10, plus 4 more for 14, so all the dice will move to the right. We have the defended traps, who will do a standard attack, and we'll see our first stunned player. In this case, it'll be the wizard. Red player is going to need some good rolls to have a chance. 5, 5, and 2. We have to remember the wizard is being stunned by the monsters. To represent that, you move the die below the box as a reminder. Here we have the sorcery defending the traps, so there is no attack. The thief can now go, and with their 5 will attack the monsters of 4, defeating them, which will release the wizard from being stunned. But it's a little too late for the wizard because we have a standard attack from the traps at a 4. The warrior just gets out of the way in time with their 5, but the trap hits and kills the wizard. Next up we have the warrior at 5, but will also get a +2 thanks to the flail that the red player managed to secure. Taking that 5 up 2 to 7. I don't think you can go higher than 6 because it doesn't matter if you go higher than 6. So the warrior will be high enough now to defeat the sorcery, releasing the defense on the traps, but there are no monsters and no wizard remaining. The red player did great again. A total of 10 minus 2 for 8. The red player can choose from the keep column or the any column, and the most lucrative one would be not to spend all 8 but just the 6 to get 4 more victory points with the ring, securing the win for sure with a victory point total of 4, 5, 6 plus 3 for a total of 9. There are no treasures that would allow the blue player to turn this around, but why the blue player go anyway, given their heroic effort in the Crypt of Terrors? Let's see if the blue player can claim at least a win for their adventure. Sorcery of 5. Traps of 4. Not looking good. And a monsters of 3. 5 and 4 for 9. Plus 3 is 12. And that'll bring us all the way down here into the Crypt of Terrors. The 12 will move the traps to the right column, but the monsters will stay on the left. And we have a pretty rough draw here for our blue player. We will have a standard attack and a stunned wizard. The monsters will be defended by the traps, and the monster will do an instant kill on the warrior and the wizard. Our blue player does have their hireling, so maybe they'll get really lucky and roll a whole bunch of 6s. Or not. We got 1, 2, 4, and 6. Our blue player went with 6 for the thief, 1 for the warrior, and 2 for the wizard. Remember, the wizard is stunned by the sorcery. We do have a standard attack of 5. The thief is able to resist the sorcery spell, but the warrior succumbs and is defeated. That brings us to the thief, who has a 6, who will attack the sorcery and defeat it, releasing the wizard from their stunned status. The traps are defending the monsters. The warrior is gone, and then we will have an instant kill from a very dangerous monster that takes out the warrior and the wizard. The blue player did manage to pull out a adventure win for themselves with a total of 5 minus 3 and can capture a treasure worth 2. This is the third and final adventure, so they will not have a chance to come back and win the game, and they could pick the 3 victory point treasure from the crypt or the staff for the wizard, and with 2 the only other option would be the wine jug maybe for 1 victory point. They will take what looks like a medallion for 3 victory points because it has the most victory points available. This symbol means hastened, which in this case means the wizard would go 1 step earlier, and instead of going 6, would go 5th before the monsters if we had that item, which would have come in useful, but it's the end of the game, and the red player wins with a total of 9 victory points to the blue player's 3. And that was a quick 2-player run through of the competitive game, but now we'll go into the co-op game.